Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, Doctor Who fans, sit down, because today we are taking a closer look at the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, but not particularly the episodes he did and the season that he did. Maybe I'll be talking about that as well, but I'll be talking about Christopher Eccleston as a person, because Christopher Eccleston is very unique. There's a reason he only did 13 episodes. There's a reason that he fell out so badly with Russell T Davies and the rest of the production team on Doctor Who and was blacklisted by the BBC. There's a reason for all of that. And the reason is Chris is a socialist. Chris believes in the power of the people, workers' rights. So for me, it was pretty obvious. As soon as I heard his casting, I was really surprised and excited at the same time. But I knew for a fact that Russell T Davies had had experience with working with Chris before. So they were kind of okay with each other. They kind of really liked each other. I think what basically happened with Doctor Who, there was a lot of inexperienced actors like Billy Piper on the set. And basically what you probably don't know about actors, they're not treated very well. When I say actors, I mean male and female, obviously. They're used as commodities. Imagine getting a cloth and squeezing the water. You know, when you do that, this is what this industry does with actors. And Eccleston doesn't take things like that, lying down. He was there fighting for their breaks, fighting for their rights, making sure they were treated properly. But of course, actors are not really treated properly on the set. If they're not finding their mark, you know, they're treated in a certain way. It depends on the director you get. Some directors have got better manners than others, but directors are not particularly people with good manners. No matter what you see in the bonus features or, you know, in the extra features of a movie, they're hard on actors because they have a job to do, and it's really difficult. A set isn't really a fun place. A set is a stressful environment, and it's only when you've completed the job in your content that you're more relaxed about it and you realise, well, I was a bit of a prick, wasn't I? You know, I can say that from experience. So basically, Chris would have been very, very stressed out with the way everyone would have been treated. And it's not a one-off. This is what happens on a set. It's very difficult. It's very different to what you see from the finished article. You know, a set is just manic. It can be confusing. It can be stressful. There's a lot of shouting. But obviously, when it's time to make your mark, it's silence on set. Of course it is. But he would have been fighting for his workers, but he's relentless. He's relentless. If he sees them wrong, he's got to right it. You should check out his Instagram account. Yes, he's actually on Instagram now. So I always thought this guy wouldn't last more than a season. And I was actually surprised the season turned out as well as it did. He's probably my favourite New Who Doctor. And he's definitely on the top of the list of my all-round Doctors. I would say that him, Paul McGann, David Tennant and Peter Davison are my top four. And actually, Matt Smith gets in my top five. I think they're my favourite Doctors. They're really the eras I know well. Now, of course, I know the Capaldi era. And although Capaldi did a wonderful job within himself, the content he was given just simply wasn't good enough for me to put him up there. But I love Peter. I've got a lot of time for Peter, not just for an actor, but the wonderful work he did with the fans while he was the Doctor. And actually he's still there. He doesn't charge all the time when he goes to conventions and things like that. He's really a lovely guy, you know. But in terms of Christopher Eccleston, so he was very passionate. And I remember him being on a BBC Breakfast Time interview when it was first announced he was going to play the Doctor. And he was very specific. He goes, look, I don't know Doctor Who that well, but I used to see the Regeneration episodes. And I didn't realise the term Whoivans was even about. But actually, in this interview that I saw, he actually uses that term. So he knew about Doctor Who fans. He knew what they were called. And he wanted to be clear that he wanted to give everything. So he believed in this character. And it was his job. When he gets the job, he's very, very focused and he wants to give it its best. Now, the two reasons he's probably my best Doctor is because I like the dark grittiness of his character. It's like when Rose is giving it to him large and he's saying, listen, you know, I've got to do what I've got to do. I've got to make these massive decisions. And it's the way he executes his lines. So good. I think one of the things I like about him, he's probably the most relatable Doctor we've ever had, because he speaks working class, if you like. He seems working class. That black leather jacket, he just seems like a guy who's walked out of a pub. And I think that's the difference between him and Tennant. As much as I love David's portrayal of the Doctor, he seems like, well, he's wearing a business suit, and he's looking very flash, looks like someone who's just come out of a nightclub. I think that's probably, as much as I love what Russell did with him, it's a little bit less relatable. But Chris was very working class, very relatable. I think the Dalek episode just sums up how this guy is the best actor who's ever played the Doctor. I want you to imagine this in Dalek, right? He's standing there with this Dalek prop. Don't forget, that is a prop. That is a prop. It's not actually a Dalek. It's not actually a proper alien. Now, I'm assuming when Nick Briggs does the voice that he can hear it, so he can react to it. I'm just assuming. It could be even more challenging in the sense that there is no voice on set, but I think there is. If I remember rightly, I was told that Nick is actually doing that on set. And then I think they do the voice tracks afterwards as well, so it can sound obviously the best that it can be. So what he did, because he's talking to that Dalek, you actually believe he despises the Daleks, that he despises this Dalek. And that episode just showed me how relatable he made the Doctor and Robert Sherman. And this is actually the only episode of New Who Robert Sherman ever wrote. And I can't believe I think he's done a lot of Big Finish, and he's a really good writer. So I was surprised. Maybe he didn't want to do any more. Maybe he thought, blimey, no, I could never get to that level again. I mean, look at Mark Gatiss. He did The Unquiet Dead, which was awesome. And then we kind of kept on moaning about his episode. So maybe Robert was the smartest one in the room in that situation. So you look at his Doctor, really relatable, really working class. And that's what Chris is. What you see is what you get. I imagine, because Chris he's done quite well in Hollywood. He was in Thor: The Dark World. He's been in other movies as well. But I think he would have been a lot more successful with mainstream Hollywood if he wasn't Chris, if he wasn't a socialist, if he didn't care about the people he works with. I guarantee you, right, if you ask anyone, especially Billy Piper, about the way he conducted himself on the set, they would have said, if it wasn't for Chris, we probably wouldn't have got any breaks. We wouldn't have been treated with any respect. So I think there's a big difference, because Russell T Davies is my hero in terms of a creator, of a writer. But that person, and he's the executive producer of the show, and his attitude would be, I need to get this in the can, right? And so everyone's put under pressure. So as well as he seems and as nice as he seems on Doctor Who Confidential, and I love the guy, the way he speaks, right? I really admire the guy. I'm not here to criticise anyone. I'm just saying it's all about points of view and perspectives. From Russell and Julie Gardner's and Phil Collins's point of view, this freaking actor, this bloody socialist, he wants to, he's having a go at us. He's refusing to come back on the set because we're not treating people a certain way. And they're not used to that. No one rarely speaks out in these situations. But this was Christopher Eccleston. He'd been on Cracker. He'd been in Gone in 60 Seconds. He'd acted with Nicolas Cage. So at the end of the day, he wasn't scared of anyone. He knows he's going to get work. And he's the kind of guy who doesn't give a shit if nobody employs him again. And of course, he's working again. Now, I'm not sure. I think he did do a drama for the BBC, which is great, but they did blacklist him. Why did they blacklist him? Well, I've explained to you the situation, what he's like. But obviously, you have to imagine that, I'm not going to say it, but no, actually, I will say maybe Russell or Julie or Phil Collins, all three decided to get the BBC to blacklist him, or maybe they didn't. But I don't think the BBC would have blacklisted him on his own without a push from someone. That's what I'm saying. And this is kind of the unfair nature of the business. But he was holding them back. Time is money. He was holding them back. But the problem is with Chris, you can't have that kind of attitude on a set. And I absolutely agree with him. People should be treated a lot better, but they're not. I mean, I've been on a set, and I mean, I've done it myself. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. It is as I say, forget what you see on the bonus features when people are giggling. You're seeing the outtakes. Shall I tell you a secret? Those outtakes, most of them are fake and acted, yeah. But you didn't know that, or some of you are cynical enough to know that. Anyway, right, so let's just look at Christopher Eccleston's run as a Doctor. People always say to me, yeah, but he only did 13 episodes. Hang on, wash your mouth out with Doctor Who Fairy Liquid. Only. He did 13 of the best episodes, right? There's some that you could criticise. Actually, there's one, and I forgot what it's called now. It's the one with that guy from Coronation Street in it, and the doctor asks if that's... Oh, I forgot the bloody... Simon Pegg's the villain in it. You know the one I mean. That's the only one I didn't warm to, but Chris did an amazing job. But basically, it was a great season. Without that season, without Chris starting it off, you know, we probably wouldn't have New Who now. And some of us may think, well, with how it's ended up, maybe that would have been for the best. But we wouldn't have wanted to miss this 9th Doctor or the 10th Doctor or Matt Smith. You know, they were 3 great Doctors. And Christopher Eccleston will be in the annals of one of the great Doctors, one of the great seasons. So this thing that, oh, he doesn't go to conventions, he only did 13 episodes. I don't go to conventions. Shall I tell you why I don't go to conventions? Because everyone who's there is paid to be there. And some of these places charge for you to talk to the actors or sign autographs and stuff. And for me, that's why I don't go to conventions. And I mean, if I was ever big enough in this industry, I promise you I wouldn't charge for anything, because I think that should be my honour, to sit there with the fans, talk to them a little bit. It shouldn't be kind of this thing where you're getting paid for and you're only doing it. But then you're on social media saying, hey, I'm going to be at a convention. Yeah, ain't I kind? No, because you're getting paid for it. But so I definitely would personally do it for free. But anyway, so yeah, Christopher Eccleston, definitely my number one Doctor. What I think about the way he conducted himself, look, that's Christopher Eccleston. He's probably dumbed it down a bit since he was blacklisted, because he doesn't want to be blacklisted again. But I think if you're someone who actually cares about people and fighting for people's rights, and as I say, if you talk to anyone he worked with on the set, especially Billie Piper, she'll tell you, you know, that this guy was a hero to us. You know, this guy was fighting for us. We were too scared. We were too intimidated. He was not. So he was like a big brother to Billie. And it's funny, actually, because you always kind of think David Tennant and Billie Piper, but actually Billie and Chris were a lot closer in reality than David and Billie were, because Chris really, really cared about the people he worked with. That's the difference. David's a nice guy. He works with you. He's nice to you. It's not, but the point is, Chris goes the extra mile for people, and this is what got him into trouble on a set where producers want to get stuff in the can. So yeah, absolutely, Christopher Eccleston, my number one Doctor. But who's your number one Doctor? Let me know. And I think I'll go through the list. I think I might do David Tennant next. I might do Matt Smith next. We'll go through it when I get some time. Until then, I shall see you later.